Hello, everybody, and welcome to Lesson 8 of CSD on Code.org. Lesson 8, Unit 3, talks about Sprite properties. Your question of the day is how can we use Sprite properties to change their appearance on the screen? So remember, you need to answer that in your flip grid by the end of this lesson. We've got one vocab word. It's property. Property is a label for a characteristic of a sprite, such as its location or appearance. And then we've got 4 new blocks of code to master today. First one is sprite.rotation. Second is sprite.scale. Third is sprite.x. And fourth is sprite.y. So let's get started. All right, so for this first one, you have to put an answer in before it lets you hit the run button. And unfortunately, I've already put my answer in and it won't let me delete it. So let's take a look at this. Look at the code below and predict what the B sprite, where the B sprite will appear and what will the program show. So let's think about this first. We've got a variable B at 200, 200. So I'm going to hit the show grid. So 200, 200 is right about there in the middle of GameLab. Line 2 sets the label B to an animation of a bee. Line 3 sets the B's X property to a new value. That's X gets 350. Well, that's way down here now, okay? And then the BY property gets 350. And then it calls the draw sprites. So from what I understand of this, the B initially is going to be drawn at 200, 200, but the computer moves so fast we probably won't see that because in lines 3 and 4, the new X and Y coordinates are 350, 350, which is right down here. All right, so in your prediction, take a look here, your options, a B sprite in the middle of the screen, a B sprite in the bottom right corner, 2 B sprites, 1 in the middle and 1 in the bottom, and 3 B sprites in all different places, and nothing. So I selected answer B, B for a B in the bottom right corner. So let's hit finish or run and see what happens. All right, as we predicted, the B is down here, but notice something. 350, 350 is right there in the middle. The B is actually drawn all around that. So 350, 350 for XY is actually the center of the sprite, not any of the corners of the sprite. Keep that in mind as we move forward. All right, fairly simple piece of the puzzle. Let's move on to level 3. Sprite properties keep track of all the information your program needs to know about a sprite, such as its size and location. You can change the values of these properties just like you do variables and see the results when your sprite is drawn on the screen. Do this. Run the program to see where the sprites appear, and then change the X and Y properties of the paintbrush to move that sprite down to the palette. All right, so hit run. I'm going to turn my grid on. Okay, so I got a palette in the bottom left corner. I've got a paintbrush in the top right corner. I need that paintbrush to move down to be closer to the palette. So let me see what the palette values are. So palette values are 100x and 300y. Well, how do I know this? I'm looking at lines 5 and 6 where it reset the palette values. So 100x, 300y. My paintbrush is at 300x, 100y. So I've got to change these. So I'm going to start with just changing them to be exactly like the palette, and I want to see what happens. So reset and run. Oh, okay, so my paintbrush is touching the palette, but doesn't look very good. So I think I'm going to back it up. So it's here, but I kind of want it to be here. So I'm using my cursor now, and then I'm looking below the reset button at my X and Y, and it looks like it's about 150, 250. So I'm going to change these values, 150, 250, and reset and run. Okay, that looks a lot better. So if your variable values are a little different, it's okay. Mine are 150, 250. You might have it touching a specific color of paint. as long as the paintbrush is touching the palette at some point, you have succeeded in completing this level, okay? So at this point, if you need to pause to finish, go ahead. Otherwise, I'm going to hit finish and move forward. Level number 4, we're going to learn about sprites and how they have a lot of properties. Check out the 2 new blocks in this activity and try them out for yourself. Notice that different sprites can use the same animation and still look different because of the properties. Do this. Run the program to see how the rotation and scale blocks make the 2 notes look different. Use the rotation and scale blocks on the last 2 notes to make them look different too. So I'm going to hit run. Okay. So I've got the first note is smaller and kind of tilted. The second note is a little smaller and kind of tilted the other direction. And then the last 2 notes are pretty big and they're pretty straight up and down. So let's take a look at my code to see what's going on. I've got drums. I won't be messing with those. I've got note 1, which is an 8th note. It looks like they're all 8th notes. Okay. So note 1, line 4, line 5, line 6 changes note 1's scale to 0.3. And line 7 changes note 1's rotation to 20. Okay. So then I've got note 2 at 8 and 9. And line 10 changes note 2's scale to 7 and note 2's rotation to -30 in line 11. Okay, so now I get it. So I need a scale and a rotation underneath line 13 and underneath line 15 for note 3 and note 4. So I'm going to start in the Sprite drawer, dot scale, grab it, drag it over. We're going to put it underneath, and this is going to be tricky. Remember, wherever that yellow line is where your block is going to end up. And I don't want it. There, I want it. Right there. Boom. I don't want it to get stuck inside anything else because that's what messes you up. So note 3, make sure you change that name. So note 3, scale. I have a 0.3 and a 0.7, so I'm going to say 0.5. Whatever number you put in there is going to be completely fine, okay? It's not about the numbers, it's about the blocks of code, okay? Remember that. I'm looking to see that you've successfully used these blocks of code. So I'm going to reset and run to see what happened. Okay. So I changed that 3rd note to be smaller. Now I'm going to add a dot rotation. Again, remember to get it to where that yellow line shows up. Right there, boom. Then I let go. This needs to say note 3 and my rotation. So let's see what was already done. I had a 20, a -30. So I think I'm going to go 30, just straight 30. See what happens. Again, you pick whatever number you want for rotation. It does not have to look exactly like mine, but you do have to have the scale and the rotation blocks in the proper order. Okay. All right, so note 3 is done. Now I'm going to do the same thing for note 4. I'm going to grab a sprite.scale, drag it down, wait till that yellow line appears, let go, name this note 4. Why? Because the labels have to be the same. So if my scale was 0.3, 0.7, 0.5, I'm going to do 0.8. Okay, make this one a little bit bigger. And then for my rotation, again, grab that block, drag it down, wait till that line is there, let go, change the label name to note 4, and then my rotation. So I have a 30, a -30, a 20. So this time I'm going to do -20. You can put whatever number you want in there, remember, as long as it looks decent. And there you have it, folks. So I've got some rotations in there. I've changed the size of the notes. Life is good. I know this puzzle is probably going to take you a little bit longer than the others just because of the complexity of dragging and dropping those blocks in there in the proper order. So if you need to pause, go ahead and do that. Otherwise, hit finish and move on. All right, so level 5 is a practice level. You can choose whichever one you want. I'm going to choose level B, rotation property. Scale property is pretty fun too, so you can't go wrong with either one of these in the practice level 5. So I picked this one because what I noticed in class is this the one that most people struggled with. So I figured I'd offer some help. So here's what needs to happen. The rotation sprite property rotates an image by between 0 and 360 degrees. So 0 and 360 means that you basically bring it all the way back to where it started. The image is rotated clockwise. For example, my sprite.rotation 90 will turn it 1/4 rotation to its right. Do this. Add rotation blocks to the code to make all the cars look like they are traveling correctly on the road. Alrighty. And is that all I have to do? Yes, it is. Okay, so I need to make them look like this picture over here. So let me run this and see what I've actually got so far. Oh, great. Got a bunch of cars, and they're not doing much of nothing. So it looks like the only one I don't have to mess with is the green car. Looking at the headlights, the green car is fine. Don't mess with it. Okay? And they labeled it car top, and that's the green car. Okay. So let's look at car yellow first. This is the yellow car right here. And if I look and find yellow car, that means it is car right. So what do I need to do? Car right, I need to add a rotation. So sprite block, sprite.rotation. Drag that down, let go of it. So sprite.rotation, and they said that it's going to rotate clockwise. So here's where some geometry comes in. So if I wanted to rotate clockwise, and I'm looking here, and this is a right angle, 90 degrees. So I don't want it to go quite 90. I'm going to guess 45. That's half of 90. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I'm going to run it and see what happens. Whoops. What did I do? Oh, I forgot to rename Sprite. Car, capital right. Okay, did I fix that? Yes, I did. See, this is why checking your labels is super important. All right, so the yellow car is in the right spot. Green car is done. Now I got to worry about blue, and I got to worry about red. Blue and red. Okay, so blue car is the bottom car, and it looks like it's got to go all the way around. I'm going to grab a rotation block, drop it in the right spot. Remember that label, car bottom, and rotate. I'm going to say 180, because the flat line is 180, and I need it to go the opposite direction that it's going now. So I'm going to hit reset and run. Looks pretty good. All right, I'm going to call that one done. And then the last one, the red car. So looking at this red car, it feels like it needs to turn 90 degrees. So I'm looking at my 90-degree angle here. That's what it's feeling like. So red car is up here. It's car left. Drag that rotation block over. Change that name. Car, capital left. And rotation is 90. Rotation is 90. Bam. So I'll turn my grid off now so it looks beautiful. Look at that. How amazing. Okay, so here's where some geometry comes into play with computer science. I need to know some basics about the properties of circles, because that's what I use. I use all these different angles. Rotation is going to rotate 360 degrees because that has something to do with circles. Yeah, I'm not a math teacher, folks. I'm a computer science teacher, but that's okay. All right, so if you need to pause, go ahead and pause. Otherwise, hit finish. All right, once again, you can hit finish if you choose, or you can do the other scale property. Scale property is a lot easier, I think, in my opinion. Totally up to you, though. It's kind of fun. All right, the assessment level. Remember, I don't help with assessment levels. I want to see what you can do, but a couple tidbits here. So we got to make the food fit. So the food is too big to fit on the plate. You use your knowledge of sprite properties to make it fit. Run the program to see how big the food is. Use Sprite properties to scale all the food down so that it fits on the plate. Here's the one hint that you get. You're going to use this block a lot. Sprite.scale. Have fun with that. Next and last, the challenge level. All right, so you got two. Once again, these two, neither one of them are any more or less difficult than the other, so I'm just going to go with B, height and width. You can choose whichever one you want. That totally doesn't matter to me, or you can do both, up to you. All right, so here's what we got to know. We learned a lot about scale property, which grows or shrinks a Sprite while their height and width ratio stays the same. But it is possible to only change the width or the height of a Sprite with other properties. Using either the Sprite already created or you can create your own, you're going to play around with height and width properties and think about when you would want these properties versus the scale property. So I'm going to hit run. Okay, so I got a basic giraffe. He's kind of hanging here, not a big deal. So Sprite drawer, I'm going to grab a Sprite height, drag it over. Ooh, this is bad. Oh, they called it a Sprite. Okay, so they didn't change the name. That's fine. So Sprite height, maybe I'm going to make this 100. Okay, reset and run and see what happens. Whoa, he's super squished. So maybe I'd want to do that if this was an image where I had an anvil drop on my giraffe's head and it smushed him. That would be a good time to change the width and height. Let's try 250. Reset and run. Looks almost normal. What about 400? 400. Okay, so he's starting to look a little long. And then with the width property, drag this over. Again, the label is Sprite, so I don't have to change the label name. And maybe with this one, I go 25. So what happens if he gets smooshed side to side? Boop. There we go. So once again, maybe I use this image to illustrate that he gets smushed between two walls or something, like a trapdoor closes, ka-chunk, and squishes him. So that's it for this. Lesson 8 is about Sprite properties, changing the width, the height, the scale, the rotation, and it's leading up to your lesson 10, your mini project where you got to create a scene all on your own. Hope this recording helped you. If you need additional help, please email me. Otherwise, I will see you all later.